I asked 5 AIs who the greatest Formula 1 driver of all time is. Each AI will give us its top 20 F1 drivers in history. Starting at number 20, ChatGPT came out swinging with a controversial pick, Charles Leclerc. A current driver who is still racing today but has yet to win a championship. Grok, on the other hand, went with Jochen Rindt, a pillar of classic motorsport and one of the fastest, most fearless drivers on the grid. His aggressive style shone brightest in 1970 at the wheel of the revolutionary Lotus 72. That season he won 5 races, including a spectacular streak of 4 consecutive victories. However, fate intervened during practice for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, where he suffered a fatal accident. Despite his absence in the final races, the points lead he had built up was enough for him to be awarded the World Championship posthumously. Gemini's vote also went to Jochen Rindt. DeepSeek went for Nico Rosberg, the only driver in history to defeat Lewis Hamilton as a teammate over a full season in 2016. And Claude voted for Carlos Reutemann, one of the great uncrowned champions in history who finished as runner-up in 1981 after losing the title in heartbreaking fashion on the very last race of the season. But if each AI voted for a different driver, how do we decide who the 20th greatest driver in history is? We'll use a point system. The higher a driver appears in the ranking, the more points they receive. 20th place gets 1 point, 19th gets 2, 18th gets 3, and so on. That puts Jochen Rindt in the lead with 2 points. But this list will change dramatically as the video goes on. For number 19, Google's AI voted for Nigel Mansell, a driver who won his 1992 championship with dominant stats, winning 9 of the first 16 races. Claude went for British driver Jenson Button, who claimed his title in 2009 with Braun GP, a team built virtually from scratch. In a stunning display of adaptability and world-class race management, Elon Musk's AI picked Mario Andretti, one of the all-time legends and 1978 world champion. China's AI chose Kimi Räikkönen, the Iceman, winner of the 2007 championship with Ferrari, and ChatGPT voted for Stirling Moss, widely considered the greatest driver never to win a title. Since none of the 5 AIs agreed, it's a 5-way tie, and all these legends earned 2 points each, level with Jochen Rindt. Though that won't stay the case for long. For the 18th best driver in history, Grok dropped an absolute heavyweight name, Graham Hill, a move I find quite premature given that this legend holds 2 Formula 1 titles, in 1962 and 1968, 14 wins and the Triple Crown. That means he won in Formula 1 at Indy and at Le Mans, making him the only driver in history to claim all 3 jewels of the crown, the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indianapolis 500, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. DeepSeek voted for Emerson Fittipaldi, another legend with 2 championships and the youngest champion of his era in 1972. Meanwhile, Gemini voted for Canadian driver Gilles Villeneuve, and Claude agreed. Villeneuve never won a world championship, but his supernatural car control and sheer raw speed make him an eternal legend of the sport. ChatGPT, for its part, voted for Jenson Button at this position, adding another 3 points to his tally. Moving swiftly on to number 17, ChatGPT puts the name of Alberto Ascari on the table, a driver who claimed back-to-back titles with total dominance in the early 1950s. Gemini says it's Graham Hill and his Triple Crown. Claude backs Kimi Räikkönen, earning the Finnish Iceman another 4 points in the standings, while Grok's vote gives Emerson Fittipaldi 4 points as well. And DeepSeek believes the 17th greatest driver in history is Jack Brabham, which genuinely surprised me. Black Jack is an Australian legend who won 3 world championships in 1959, 1960, and 1966. With 14 victories and 31 podiums, his nickname came from his dark hair, ever-present silence, and shrewd yet aggressive style on track. Since this is an all-time ranking, most of the drivers are retired legends, though we'll see a few modern stars further down the list. At number 16, both Gemini and Claude voted for Emerson Fittipaldi, sending him surging up the leaderboard. But Grok, ChatGPT, and DeepSeek all agreed on Nigel Mansell for this position, putting the British Lion at the top of the standings. As the 15th greatest driver of all time, Google's AI repeated Jack Brabham's name. ChatGPT and DeepSeek went for Mika Häkkinen, the Flying Finn, 2 championships, 20 victories. He shattered Schumacher's dominance in the late 90s with brutal qualifying pace and jaw-dropping overtaking ability. His battles with Schumacher defined an era, and his mental fortitude after recovering from a near-fatal accident showed true elite-level composure. Nelson Piquet is chosen by Claude and Grok to earn his seat at the table of the greats. 3 titles in 1981, 1983, and 1987, 23 victories, and fierce rivalries with Prost and Senna. His tactical brilliance and ability to perform on demanding circuits made him a pioneer of the turbo era. He was so highly regarded that Gemini picked him again at number 14, but the others didn't agree. Grok voted for Mika Häkkinen again, while ChatGPT went for Kimi Räikkönen. DeepSeek chose Italian Alberto Ascari, and Claude put Nigel Mansell high up the order. That means every driver earns 7 points in this round. The standings have now shifted significantly, with Nigel Mansell leading, while Nelson Piquet and Mika Häkkinen are tied for second and third on 19 points. But let's see how this continues. At number 13, both Gemini and Claude voted for Mika Häkkinen, pushing him even further up the rankings. Grok and ChatGPT disagreed, voting for Guilherme Villeneuve and Alberto Ascari, respectively. China's AI, meanwhile, chose Stirling Moss, the sport's greatest uncrowned king. The story goes that at the 1958 Portuguese Grand Prix, Moss's main title rival Mike Hawthorne was temporarily disqualified for rejoining the race in the wrong direction after a spin. Moss voluntarily went to the race stewards and testified in Hawthorne's favor, arguing the maneuver had taken place off the track and posed no danger. The stewards reinstated Hawthorne's points. At the end of the season, Hawthorne was crowned world champion by just 1 point over Moss. Moss never regretted the decision, and that is the most famous reason why Stirling Moss never won a championship, a story that speaks volumes about his extraordinary sense of honor. Despite never having a world title on the shelf, his versatility to win in any type of car and in any conditions keeps him in the conversation for greatest of all time. That's why both Claude and Gemini voted for him again at 12th. ChatGPT decided its vote was for Nelson Piquet, while DeepSeek put a fresh name in the mix, Sebastian Vettel. 4 consecutive championships in 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2013 with 53 victories. He defined an era of total domination at Red Bull, with an extraordinary ability to string together fast laps and handle pressure. Grok, meanwhile, voted for living legend Fernando Alonso, El Nano. 2 consecutive titles in 2005 and 2006, 32 victories, and exceptional longevity. He won with Renault in inferior machinery and outperformed teammates like Hamilton at McLaren. His tactical intelligence and mastery in the wet and in wheel-to-wheel battles make him the standout driver across multiple eras. I'm very curious to see where legends like Sebastian Vettel or Fernando Alonso end up in the final points tally, but both El Nano and Vettel come up again at number 11. DeepSeek's vote went to Nelson Piquet, and ChatGPT introduced a new name, Jackie Stewart. Known worldwide by his nickname the Flying Scot, he is one of the most important figures in the history of Formula One. His legacy rests on 2 great pillars: his undeniable talent behind the wheel and his relentless efforts to save drivers' lives. After surviving a serious accident in 1966, Stewart led a movement to transform the sport, demanding urgent changes and championing the mandatory use of full-face helmets, seatbelts, on-track medical services, and proper circuit barriers. At this point, the standings have Nelson Piquet leading with 38 points, Mika Häkkinen on 35, and Sebastian Vettel on 29. It's remarkable that right now, a driver with no world championships, Stirling Moss, sits 4th, ahead of 3-time champion Jackie Stewart, who has only accumulated 10 points so far. But that will change. For the moment, both Stewart and Moss are picked again at number 10 by Claude and Grok. ChatGPT also repeated a familiar name, voting for Sebastian Vettel, while Gemini and DeepSeek both agreed on Niki Lauda. Lauda won 3 world championships and stood out for his astonishing technical analytical mind and courageous comeback after a horrific fire accident. His ice-cold composure allowed him to maximize points at every Grand Prix, treating the whole season as a marathon, not a sprint. He proved that mental strength and perfect car setup are just as important as raw bravery on track. This Austrian legend was so revered that he was voted in again at 9th place by Grok and Claude. Gemini and DeepSeek, meanwhile, gave their votes to Fernando Alonso, El Nano, universally respected in the paddock for his tactical intelligence, his strategic vision throughout a race, and his remarkable ability to extract the maximum performance performance from any car, often delivering results well beyond what the machinery was truly capable of. ChatGPT, however, disagreed and voted for Jim Clark, 2 titles in 1963 and 1965, with 25 victories from just 72 races and 33 pole positions. He dominated the 60s with Lotus, winning in dry and wet conditions alike through sheer natural talent, outpacing teammates and rivals. His premature death left a void in the sport, but his pure driving genius remains the benchmark for natural brilliance in Formula One. We're getting ever closer to the top positions now, and the names are about to change dramatically. For the 8th greatest driver in history, Claude once again named Jim Clark, while Gemini and DeepSeek disagreed and chose Jackie Stewart. ChatGPT went straight back to Niki Lauda, but Grok decided it was time for something fresher and put forward the name of Max Verstappen, the youngest debutant in Formula One history at just 17 years and 166 days, and the youngest race winner ever at 18 years and 228 days, claiming that first win at the Spanish Grand Prix. In the 2023 season, he won 19 of the 22 races on the calendar, a level of dominance never seen before. That same season, he won 10 consecutive races, breaking records set by the sport's greatest legends. On to 7th place, Gemini once again named Max Verstappen. Claude voted for his predecessor Sebastian Vettel. ChatGPT went for Fernando Alonso. China's AI picked Jim Clark, and Grok said the 7th greatest driver in history is Jackie Stewart. With that, all of them earned 14 points, and the standings are now led by Jackie Stewart on 61 points, followed closely by Niki Lauda on 59. The 3rd best driver in history at this point would be Fernando Alonso, which is quite remarkable. For 6th place, Max Verstappen climbs several spots by receiving 2 votes from ChatGPT and DeepSeek, while Jim Clark picks up 2 more from Grok and Gemini. Claude, meanwhile, decided to champion a true legend and voted for Alain Prost, the Professor, winner of 4 world championships and 51 victories through the most refined tactical intelligence Formula One has ever seen. Prost didn't win races by brute force. He managed his tires, his fuel, and his rivals with surgical precision. His rivalry with Senna elevated both men to new heights, and the fact that he claimed his 4th title in 1993 with Renault after a 2-year retirement is something utterly unique in the sport. This legend, capable of going toe-to-toe with Ayrton Senna, was so iconic that for 5th place, not only did he receive ChatGPT's vote, but 4 AIs aligned to vote him in as the 5th greatest driver of all time. Claude, for its part, simply believed Max Verstappen is better. With that, the standings are led by Alain Prost on 79 points, followed by Max Verstappen on 73 and Jim Clark on 69. A Formula One season featuring all these legends would genuinely be something special to watch. Moving to 4th place, Gemini names one of the most iconic figures in motorsport, Ayrton Senna, Magic. Not the most decorated, but arguably the most impactful in terms of pure talent. 3 titles in 1988, 1990, and 1991 with 41 victories at McLaren. A legend in the rain, delivering iconic drives like Donington Park in 1993 and capable of winning in inferior machinery while outgunning Prost at McLaren. His raw talent and charisma elevated Formula One to a cultural phenomenon, leaving a legacy of passion and safety that endures to this day. He was such a legend that DeepSeek and Grok both agree with Gemini and vote him 4th greatest. Claude and ChatGPT, however, believed the 4th greatest driver in history was Argentine Juan Manuel Fangio.
Mr. Senna, which of your fellow competitors do you admire most, and why?
One of the greatest drivers of all times is Fangio.
With 5 world championships from just 52 races, his efficiency was superhuman. His win percentage of nearly 47% remains, to this day, the highest in the entire history of Formula One. Fangio won with 4 different teams: Alfa Romeo, Maserati, Ferrari, and Mercedes, proving he was the defining factor, not the car. Widely considered the most complete driver of the classic era, and now for the podium of the greatest Formula One drivers in history, according to AI. 3rd place sees another vote for Juan Manuel Fangio, this time from DeepSeek, though Gemini and Grok disagreed and put forward the towering name of Michael Schumacher, the Red Baron. For many, this might feel too low. Michael Schumacher transformed Ferrari and claimed 7 world championships with an overwhelming consistency that defined the 90s and early 2000s. His ability to drive brilliantly in the rain and his relentless work ethic allowed him to win even when he didn't have the fastest car. He set a new standard standard for physical and technical preparation that every driver today still tries to emulate, there is only one driver who can be compared to Schumacher in terms of titles, and that's Lewis Hamilton, who also received 2 votes from Claude and ChatGPT. As already noted, he shares Schumacher's record of 7 world championships and leads the all-time statistical records with over 100 wins and pole positions. He demonstrated absolute dominance in the hybrid era, consistently beating his teammates and producing spectacular performances in the wet. A living legend who could to this day still be adding to his trophy cabinet. Lewis Hamilton is such a legend that in second place he receives 2 more votes from Grok and Gemini. His counterpart Schumacher also picks up 2 more votes from ChatGPT and DeepSeek, while Claude holds firm in its belief that the second greatest driver in history is Ayrton Senna. The standings are getting closer than ever, and so we come to first place. Who is the greatest Formula 1 driver in history according to AI? For Google's AI, it's Juan Manuel Fangio. The story goes that at the 1957 German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, Fangio was racing with Maserati. He made a pit stop, but the mechanics lost a wheel nut and he lost nearly a minute of time. With just 10 laps remaining, everyone thought Fangio was finished. But the Argentine drove at the absolute limit, breaking the lap record 9 times in a row. On the penultimate lap, Fangio caught the Ferrari drivers ahead of him, overtook them, and won his 5th world championship. I have never driven that quickly before in my life, and I don't think I will ever be able to do it again, Fangio later confessed. This driver is such a legend that Grok agrees with Gemini and places him first in history. ChatGPT, on the other hand, defends the legendary Ayrton Senna as the greatest of all time. China's AI argues that the greatest driver in history is Lewis Hamilton, but Claude disagreed and voted for Michael Schumacher. So there's no global consensus on who the greatest driver in history truly is. We'll have to add up the points to find a real winner. Starting from 10th place, where points would begin to accumulate in a real race, we find Spain's greatest ever Formula 1 driver, Fernando Alonso, with 57 points. In 9th place sits Niki Lauda with 59 points. The 8th greatest driver in history according to AI is Jackie Stewart, while 7th belongs to British legend Jim Clark. According to the AIs, the 6th greatest driver in history is Max Verstappen, a driver who could keep climbing this ranking in the years to come. The 5th greatest driver in history according to AI is Alain Prost with 79 points, and ahead of him with 90 points stands the legendary Ayrton Senna. On the podium, the AIs decided that 3rd place belongs to Juan Manuel Fangio with 92 points. And remarkably, there was a tie for 1st and 2nd between Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton, both finishing on 94 points. The top positions were incredibly close, and the slightest change would tip the scales. But Hamilton is still active today, so this ranking could have a clear winner in a matter of months or years. But for you, who is the greatest driver in history?